Y'all listening?
All praises.
Nah, that's up.
All praises. Shalom, shalom, y'all.
Shalom.
All right, yeah. So, doing part three of Unity today, the strength of a people, and now we're gonna kind of look at oneness in the household, right? So, kind of the approach that we'll be taking with this one is like each individual in a household, their level of oneness that they have to operate in to even be able to come together to achieve oneness in the household.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's pretty much the direction of this one. Today we're gonna primarily focus on the role of the men. Um, Again, as always with these lessons, not intended to be an exhaustive study, but enough for us to get the wheels turning and move forward from there in our own personal meditation time.
Definitely important.
So, all praises. Without further ado, the scriptures expressed in this study are those of the author and not my own. Viewer discretion is advised. In the last lesson, we looked at unity and how the goal of the Torah is to bring unity between those that have been joined to the Father's covenant. We saw an overview of how unity works, but today we'll look more specifically at how this works within the individual, and how each one of those individuals can then come together as a house. Last week we saw that unity represents oneness, and we will see today how we will have to work towards oneness within self to achieve oneness as a community or as a nation of people, right? So, good old swordsman, Hebrews chapter 4, starting at verse 11. Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest anyone fall after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit, and of joints and of marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked and laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account. Right. Excuse me. So, like we say every week, the goal is that we just get on one accord with the Father as best as we can, and it starts with us learning His ways. And that's what the swordsman represents, right? His ways are meant to dig deep within us so that we can make some changes, right? It's only there to build us up, never to tear us down, right? So these lessons are not directed at any one person or group, but are intended to be edifying and useful to all who have joined themselves to the covenant of Yahuwah. The Father is impartial and none can avoid him, even the person who is tasked with presenting the lesson, myself, right? So we are all held to the standard, and none of us are above his ways or corrections and reproofs, right? Like I said, you got the illustrations. We saw this, so we're gonna see more of this as well. The sword is gonna come, and the swordsman, he a master with it. He dancing on top of the swords and all of that. So he know how to use them bad boys. You stand in front of it, and you're gonna get split. And that's just the way that it goes. So anybody can get that business, right? Romans 2:1. Right. It says, therefore, oh man, you are without excuse, everyone who judges, for in which you judge another, you condemn yourself, since you who judge practice the same wrongs. And we know that the judgment of Elohim is according to truth against those who practice such wrongs. And do you think, oh man, you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim? Right. And the answer is no, you won't. So that's a message to me as the one giving it, but also to anybody who is in agreement with what's being brought out in the lessons, with what the Father has to say on the matter. That's all of us, right? So, yeah. So when we talk about community, we understand that it starts at home, right? Each household then comes together and makes a community. When we look at each household, we see that the members of the household have to have a level of oneness within themselves to Elohim in order for the whole house collectively to move as one unit. So we'll see that the Father designed for this to start with the man. Then this oneness must be shared between the man and the woman. And then these two become one. And then the children, the product of their union, are raised up in a united household, right? So then literally everything will all be reciprocated within the household as long as each individual buys into the covenant, right? And then we see unity. We saw this a couple weeks ago, but unity is a state of being one, oneness, right? A whole or totality is combining all its parts into one, right? A household is made up of many parts, but it can move as one unit as long as all move as one unit. It sounds simple, but that's really what it is. So today we'll talk about the family from a Hebraic perspective. We'll look at the various moving parts of the functional family. It's my hope that we will be able to take what we learn in this lesson with us to move forward and build a strong set apart family. It's my belief that we can understand Yahuwah through the Hebrew family structure, right? So first and foremost, we must identify Yahuwah's order for the family. In every Hebrew family, there is a hierarchical system. Now, this does not necessarily mean that each person's value is less or more, but it does mean that each one has a different function as different members of the household, right? So as we understand the way that the physical household operates is my hope that we will start to understand how Yahuwah's spiritual household operates. What we will find is that these two run parallel one with the other in principle. We want to mirror our earthly households after the Father's blueprint as closely as possible. In today's society, we are faced with the cultural acceptance to rebel against this design. And as is evident today, this brings chaos, disorder, and dysfunction to the household, disunity. So you got an illustration there, right? It says there may be too many cooks in the kitchen. When members of a team or group of employees from different departments are having difficulty working on a project together. You may also hear someone use this expression to describe a team that has too many people contributing conflicting ideas to a project, right? Now, whatever it is that they cooking, look like Nickelodeon slime, right? Like, it's green. It got a green base. The man pouring a brown liquid in it. They fighting. They beefing, right? But all of these cooks they've all been hired, right? So they all belong. They all got a certain level of skill, mastery, and a certain responsibility. Otherwise, whoever owns this facility wouldn't have hired them. Right. One thing you're not going to do is hire hands you don't need. Right. So they all have something to do. But the issue is that they're all trying to do the same thing. So with that being said, that means that whatever the other things are that need to be done, because there's a lot of things that need to be done, they're not getting done. And only one thing is getting done wrong. Right. So that part right there, right? It's all about unity. But in order for us to have unity, there is a level of independence that has to also operate within unity in order for each individual to contribute to the oneness of the whole group. That's really what we get at, right? So the Hebrew household consisted of several parts that make up one body called the family. Just as it is with the body, each member of the family is equally important, but serves a different function for the body. For instance, the hands and the ears perform two completely different tasks, but together bring order to the body, creating wholeness, right? So we got a father / husband, we got the mother / wife, we got the children, and that's sons and daughters, right? Or brothers and sisters. And this is pretty much the nuclear family. So, man, I didn't realize that was going to be so small. But we're going to make it through. All praises.
All praises.
So, just some history and some background, right? So, education, work, and leisure were concentrated in and around the household. So, according to the Bible, the ideal family in ancient Israel was large and patriarchal. The extended family, or Beit Av, or the father's house, consisted of three generations living together. So that's already showing you that no, the Torah was set up to achieve generational unity.
Hmm.
From generation to generation, there was supposed to be a level or a thread of unity between one generation to the next generation, right? So it says, father, married sons and grandchildren. Excavated houses from the Bronze and Iron Age are small and suggest an average family size of 4 to 8 people. Although extended families might have occupied more than one house, high mortality rates probably kept most families from achieving the biblical ideal, right? So, one typical type of dwelling in the Iron Age was the 4 room house. This house or this style is extremely common throughout the Iron Age, especially in Israelite and Judean territory. Numerous finds along modern Israel's Mediterranean coast and in Jordan's highlands show that it was also common in Ammon, Moab, Edom, and Philistia. Rooms had distinct functions. One room would have been used as a stable and for short-term storage. Another room served for food processing and other household tasks. A room was also needed for long-term storage. There was also a room for entertaining and perhaps a separate room for entertaining. The sleeping and entertaining rooms would have been located on the second floor. All right. So, and just to put something in the mind, look, remember they went to the upper room of the dwelling when Mashiach told them, hey, that's why. It's because this is usually where those quarters are in their typical houses, right? So it says a 4 room house, also known as an Israelite house or a pillared house, is the name given to the mud and stone houses characteristic of the Iron Age of Levant. The 4 room house is so named because its floor plan is divided into 4 sections, although not all 4 are proper rooms, one being an unroofed courtyard. It is also sometimes called a pillared house because 2 or all 3 of the parallel ground level rooms are separated by 1 or 2, respectively, rows of wooden pillars. The pillars, however, are not the defining feature of the 4 room house. And this error of terminology leads to the confusion of 4 room houses with other buildings, such as storehouses and stables, where pillars were widely used, but which were not constructed under the 4 room house layout. When an upper floor was included, the inhabitants used it as living quarters, while the ground floor was used as a stable for livestock and for storage. There were multiple variations on the basic 4 room house. Some had 5, 3, or 2 room layout or a 2 room layout, and sometimes the rooms were divided by additional walls into smaller areas. Acknowledging these subtypes of the 4 room house, the popularity of the structure started at the beginning of the Iron Age, one end of the 11th century BCE, and dominated the architecture of Israel through the Iron Age 2 period until the Babylonian exile. So this is the way we did things, pretty much from the existence of Israel, right? After the destruction of Judah of the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, the architecture type was no longer utilized. So something about the captivity pulled whatever that was and why we built houses in this way. It pulled it out, right? So we got some diagrams there, just to give you a visual aid of what they was talking about. This is how the house was set up and divided, right? All praises. So the idea of family in ancient Israel was more expansive than our modern idea. Family existed at 3 basic levels. First, there was the bayit, or the household, right? So this was similar to our nuclear family of parents with probably 2 to 4 children, as well as multiple generations, but it also might include debt servants, slaves, concubines, resident aliens, sojourners, day laborers, and orphans, right? So second, there was the mishpachah, loosely called a clan. right? So the term was used occasionally for large social units, even the entire nation of Israel. Most typically, it is used in reference to residential kinship groups consisting of several households. Third, there was the Matah, or the tribe, which consisted of many clans. Ancient Israel was an agrarian society that required extensive cooperation for economic survival. Leo Perdue writes, social cooperation among families in the clan or the mishpachah was necessary for building and maintaining terraces to conserve the soil and reduce water runoff, for sharing a common water source, wells or streams, for constructing cisterns that retained water for the rainy season, for judicial settlements, and for a common defense. A network of mutual care was necessary for households to survive crop failures and food shortages caused by drought, blight, and disease. This network of care extended beyond individual to tribes and to the sons of Israel, whose marginal poor included Levites, widows, fatherless children, resident aliens, debt servants, slaves, and sojourners. Right, and that was a quote, I guess, from a book called "The Israelite and Early, we'll say, Yahudi family in families in ancient Israel." Right, so that's the quote wherever the person who wrote this article he tagged that from. Um, but yeah, here we see in this that the house, the idea and the concept of a household is going to require a certain level of unity, and that this unity translated not just from one house, but all of these houses. I says all the time, right? Not just this, but no, the Father's house is a house of many mansions. Like, no, this one house then connects to another house. All of these houses connected. Then now we got a whole nation that's operating on one accord. But it's so many checks that had to get boxes that had to get checked in order for the end goal to work right. All praises. So yeah, just a little bit of history. Give us some roots to put in the ground, right? To understand, like, no, there was a method to the madness of what the scriptures are trying to teach us, and like the social structures that we look at within the scriptures. Like, no, there's a method to the madness, and it really is with the end goal of us all being able to operate on one accord with the Father. Like, this is what his whole goal is, and why he gives us all of these commandments to tell us, do this, don't do this, right? This is how you do this. This is how you don't do this. Feast days centered around agricultural harvest, and don't forget about me with these. And like literally every aspect of Torah, he's trying to show us: have unity with one another, have unity with me. Like literally, that's what it's all about. All praises. So, in an agrarian society, land was essential to survival. So, furthermore, the promise that Elohim gave to Abraham and his descendants was inextricably tied up with each Israelite family having a share in the land of Elohim as Elohim's stewards. So, in order for us to be able to maintain the land of this covenant, every household has a role to play, and you got to carry your own level of weight because your house is allotted a certain portion of this land, right? So if you don't uphold a piece of this, your portion, your parcel of land, then now this parcel of land for the whole nation is being lost, right? Like, so you have to keep up with your you have to maintain your load, if you will, because if you don't, you risk borders getting moved by other nations, and now this land don't belong to your people no more altogether. You know, so it's critical and it's crucial that we understand. Okay, so on an individual level, it's things you're gonna have to do within your household to keep the household going. And then, okay, now that we can keep this household going, it's things that we all together, we all got to pull together to make sure that we keep up so that we can maintain this household and teach it to the next generation so that they can keep it. And then process just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. And then from that, if we all do that and we all hold down home base, then we all as a nation can hold down this whole nation together. So yeah, definitely, definitely was a lot there. So all right, 2 or 3 consecutive years of drought, crop failures, or other calamities could easily force someone to forfeit their land in exchange for goods to survive. Now, that is a whole bar. That's interesting because the father said that if we obey, we wouldn't have to worry about those things. But if we don't obey, and if we don't handle what we need to handle on an individual level and on a household level, then drought and this stuff is going to come. And then now that drought is coming, now you're going to lose whatever it was that I gave you, you're gonna start losing those things. Like literally, it really is a level of maintenance, is what I say. There's a level of maintenance that is required. All praises. So it says 2 or 3 consecutive years of drought, crop failures, or other calamities could easily force someone to forfeit their land in exchange for goods to survive. Thus, we find considerable attention given to the protection of land ownership, most notably in Leviticus 25 and other passages. But a household was not just the land. A household estate would include fields, orchards, vineyards, pastures, livestock, and the tools and implements for living and working. And not just that, but the information that's going to be required to be able to use and upkeep all of those things.
Yes. Blueprint for a family business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All praises. So ancient Israel was a patrilocal society. Adult sons lived with their father. When they married, usually within the clan, the bride came to live in the husband's father's house. A separate structure was often added to accommodate the new couple attached to either existing structures or adjoining a common courtyard, right? So they would have one house and they would prepare a place, as Mashiach said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prepare a place for the bride on the father's property and either build on another house that's all connected to the central courtyard. And they would all share this courtyard, and the courtyard would become basically the community area. This is where we're going to all eat together. We're going to all be together.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had separate living quarters that branched off of that if they had the space in the land to be able to do that, which they should, but we know how the cookie crumbles sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But either that or the means, because sometimes you just don't have the means to be able to build up like that. And it's like, instead of building a whole nother structure, just add a room onto what we got, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either way is okay. But yeah, we see how it used to go, right? So it says a group of households might typically be located together to form villages. Purdue suggests that most villages in Israel's early history consisted of no more than about 100 people. By the time of the monarchy, some urbanization had begun, but this small rural village framework was present down to the time of Mashiach. So, in a way, family can be viewed as concentric circles with the household at the center, the clan farther out, and the tribe existing out beyond the clan. But there is another dimension as well. The Israelites also had a strong sense of connectedness with their ancestors and yet to be born descendants. So that's that generational thing. These folks were understood to be part of the household, clan, and tribe as well. When someone died, they were said to be gathered with his or her ancestors. As time went by, the ideas of clan and particularly tribe became somewhat fictive relationships without always having a strict biological connection involved. So every house is built. When you build a house, this means that you must labor. In order for the structure to be safely built, you must execute a plan. There must be a carefully thought out blueprint. If you do not have a vision of what you are building before you start, odds are you will not get very far. Every little detail matters when it comes to building the home. If you miscalculate even the smallest detail, at some point there will be a failure in the structure. If you do not properly measure your door frame, when you install a door, it will either be too small and it will not fit, or it will be too big and it will not fit. If you do not properly lay the roof, you will end up with a leak later on. If you do not run the plumbing properly, you will have constant blockages, overflows, and backups. If you do not properly support your floor, you will fall through. If you do not properly support your roof, it'll collapse on you. So there is much thought that goes into building construction, right? And the household, our households are really no different, right? In order for this structure to be deemed functional for a home, it must pass a series of tests to see whether or not it is compliant to the law or not. And that's just natural law. Even in this system, you cannot go and build a house and think that they just gonna let you live in it. It has to be up to code, right? So that means that the code is it has to abide by certain sets of laws in order for this house to function, right? So there's electrical codes, plumbing codes, all kinds of building codes. I'm not an architect, but I can tell you this much. You try to build anything, and them people, if they see it, they're gonna come and see you. And they're gonna make sure, is it up to code or not? Father is the same way. You trying to build his house, he gonna say, hey, let's check these boxes and let's get this up to code. Right? So these laws are called building codes. If your dwelling is not up to code, it may not legally be lived in. At this point, you are given a list of problems and you are given a chance to fix them. If the problems cannot be fixed, the structure must be torn down. So again, in the physical, we see how this works. And the Father, it literally is the same way. All praises. So, and that is, and like that's 100%. Like when we were moving in here, it was something as simple as like the garage door had like paint chips that was like now, and like we had to get the inspection. They had to come out. They had to fix the problem before we got the house, and they had to come back out. And the dude is like, I mean, it was just some paint on the garage door, but like they would not let us move into this place without that garage door being repainted, because it's like it got to be up to code. So Father is the same way, like definitely is the same way. All praises. So here we got our word for house, right? The Bait, H1129, abbreviated a house in the greatest variation of applications, especially a family, right? So the court, the daughter, the door, dungeon, family, right? We get it, right? And in some cases, it's used as the house of Elohim, where we're talking about the temple, right? This is his dwelling place, right? Um, and then we got the root of that word, which is to build, right? Bana, which to build literally and figuratively, to begin to build, to obtain children, to make, repair, to set up. This is what it means to build, right? So literally, when we're looking at the word for house and we're looking at the word for family, this is something that's built from the ground up. All right, so the Hebrew word bana means to build. If we look at this pictographically, we see figuratively that the seed of the house is beheld. So we will talk more about this aspect later, but but the more concrete word picture is that the life of the house is witnessed. The first letter, the bet, is a picture of the tent floor plan. A floor plan is an idea, a vision, a plan. If you want to see or behold this tent floor plan, if you want to see it be brought to life, you must build it. And that's what all of these letters come together to mean. So how do we build a functional household, right? Like that is the question. Well, then how do we do it? What's the building code, right? So you must first find out where you want to build it. If you must first find a strong foundation. If your foundation is poor, the house will not stand the test of time. So what is the foundation for your house? How strong of a house are you trying to build? If it's just a temporary quick fix, doing just enough for now may work as long as nothing unexpected occurs. If you want something to last, that can be passed down, that can be passed on as an inheritance to the generations to come, it must be built on a solid, strong foundation, right? So Matthew 7:24 Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. For everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them shall be likened unto a and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Right? So whether you wise or foolish, winds, the waves, the storms, they're gonna come regardless.
They're part of the environment.
Just it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But your survival in it is gonna be predicated on what? What's your foundation? How strong is it? How solid is it? If you grounded in this, my commands, my ways, my principles, my values, when the waves gonna come, you'll be able to stand up through them.
Yeah.
They still gonna beat on your house, but the house ain't gonna be torn down. But built on the wrong things, the house that might have seemed like it was all right, the wrong wind blow through and it's gonna fall down because it's not built on his ways, right? So it really is important understand the building code because ultimately that's what it's saying, right? If you build it to code, when the storms and stuff come, that's why the codes are there. It's supposed to be able to endure and last if you build it to code. But if you don't build it to code, it's a crapshoot. This stuff might come and we might be like, yeah, no, that's because you were supposed to have a floor joist right here. You were supposed to have a roof support right here. You were supposed to put beams across like this, and then them beams were supposed to be this size beam, right? This kind of support, and you didn't build it that way, and so now, yeah, when a certain level of G forces came, them wasn't gonna hold it up. Yeah, if nothing's going on, yes, it can stand. But otherwise, the right winds and the right forces come from the environment against it, which they're going to come, regardless. It can tear the place down, right? So definitely something for us to think about when we're talking about on a household level, right? How each household got to be built up to code. And if every household is built up to code, then we're going to be able to have a whole nation that's built up to code, right? So, what's the rock, right? Obviously, we know what it is, but it's worth saying, right? Isaiah 28:16. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahuwah, behold, I lay in Zion a foundation for a foundation of stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. Huh. Judgment also will I lay to the line, and righteousness to the plummet. And the hell shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters shall overflow the hiding place. So could them two this hell that's sweeping away the lies and things like I wonder if those have anything to do with them same ones that Mashiach was just talking about. It's gonna come regardless because they have a purpose too, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All praises. So Psalm 118 and 19, he says, open to me the gates of righteousness. I will go into them and I will praise, yeah, this gate of Yahuwah into which the righteous shall enter. I will praise you, for you have heard me and are become my salvation. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. This is Yahuwah's doing. It is marvelous in our sights, in our eyes. This is the day which Yahuwah has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Save now, I beseech you, O Yahuwah. O Yahuwah, I beseech you, send now prosperity. Blessed be he that comes in the name of Yahuwah. We have blessed you out of the house of Yahuwah. So, really, to put it in a nutshell, right? Our saving grace is going to be putting on the ways of Mashiach. right? Like, and it's not just, it's really putting on the ways of Mashiach. Everything that we learned from Mashiach was what? Self denial, being a servant, right? He even said, everyone who desires to lead must first serve, right? These are the ways of Mashiach. This is the building code. He's telling us how to build the house up. That even if something came against it, in 3 days it'll be built back up. No worries. Ain't no tearing this down. All praises.
Some things literally last forever. None of them have a source outside of you.
Hmm. Hmm. All praises. Acts chapter 4, verse 8. Then Peter, filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, said unto them, you rulers of the people and elders of Israel, if we this day be examined of the good deed done to the impotent man, by what means he is made whole, be it known unto you all and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom Yah raised from the dead, even by him does this man stand here before you whole, in a state of oneness. This is the stone which was set at not of you builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. So literally, again, this is our saving grace. Our ancestors tried to build by another way, and it didn't work. They rejected the one stone that they needed the most. Putting on his ways. 1 Peter 2:3, it says, if so be you have tasted that Yahuwah is gracious, to whom coming as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of Yah, and precious, you also as lively stones are built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Yahuwah by Yahushua HaMashiach. Wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he that believes on him shall not be confounded. Unto you therefore which believe, he is precious. But unto them which be disobedient, the stone which the builders disallowed, the same is made the head of the corner, and a stone of stumbling, and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being disobedient, whereunto also they were appointed. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy or a set apart nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Connects it all to what we were looking at over these past few weeks. Sons of light, sons of darkness. Which in time past you were not a people, but now the people, but are now the people of Yahuwah, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Man, how much does that resonate today?
So is it all right to say or to correlate that this calling
Mm.
is the foundation of our house?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All praises. So I don't know if y'all remember the song from back in the day. Mashiach, the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. So the foundation for your household has to be Mashiach Yahusha, right? You have to follow his ways. It's his job to build the Father's house. We will see the importance of this later on in the lesson, but for now, it's very important that you understand that Yahusha is showing you how to build your house. If you follow the blueprint for how he is building the Father's house for your house, it will be structurally sound. So this will require understanding order. If you start, if you start to build your house and finish the exterior and put the door on, but you don't build the floor, when you walk through the door, you will fall straight to the basement. This fall, if unexpected, can really hurt you or end you, right? So say all of that to say that there's steps in a process, and you have to follow the steps in order to get to the end goal, right? So we've already looked at this, but it's just something to keep in mind. Matthew 7:24 through 27 again, right? What we're building the house on. A wise man is going to build it on the stone. Mashiach is that stone. So 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Mashiach, and that the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Mashiach is Yahuwah, right? So notice you're going to find that there is supposed to be a oneness in all of these levels, right? Colossians 3:18 on the same token, right? Women, submit yourselves unto your own men as it is fit in Yahusha. Men, love your women and be not bitter against them. Children, obey your parents in all things. So that's all the levels of the house. For this is well pleasing unto Yahuwah. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in singleness of heart. That's that oneness again, fearing Yahuwah. And whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to Yahuwah and not unto men, knowing that of Yah you shall receive the reward of the inheritance. Talking about households. For you serve Yahuwah or Yahusha, the Mashiach. That's what that's supposed to be. I don't know why they put that in there. It's a C for sorry. Um, but anyways, in order to start the house, it must first begin with the man, right? So as it stands, Yahuwah made the man first, right? So this is the H1, a primitive word, father in a literal and immediate or figurative and remote application, chief, father, patrimony, principle, right? So the first letter, reading from the right to the left, is the Aleph, right? It's a picture of an ox's head representing strength and leadership. So the second letter is the Bet. It is a picture of a tent floor plan and has the meaning of a house or dwelling place, right? So when we put it all together, we understand that the father is supposed to be the strong leader of the house, right? By definition, that's literally what it is, right? All praises. So here's what Jeff Benner, the Hebrew, ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible, has to say about it. He says, to stand, right? It's a pole, a ob, right? So it could also mean a pole. The pictograph represents strength, or the pictograph for the A, the olive represents strength. The Bet represents the tent. Combine these mean the strength of the house. This can be the tent poles which hold up the tent, the house, as well as the father who holds up the family, the household, right? So also, it can mean fruit, right? Uh, and what he's getting at here is like when we look at the word for the season of spring, right? Abib, literally is first two letters is Ab. Ab is the root of this, right? So fruit, the word can also be fresh fruit, the father of the next generation of trees attached to the tree or the pole. So the father of the family provides the strength, support, and structure to the household. The family or the father fulfilled many functions for the family. He was the commander of the family army, provider of offspring to continue the family line, the priest and teacher. The father can be of the immediate family or a lineage such as Jacob, who is the father of the Israelites. A father can also be the patron of a profession or art, right? So again, chief, they're just giving you the strongs there afterwards. Say all that to say that the father is very important in the household, right? And that's not to say that every other part of the household is not important, because it is, but today we just focusing on the father first primarily, right? So if the father is not strong in the house will fail, or it will fall, right? When you construct any house, there are beams that support the structure called load bearers. If you do not have a strong enough beam or support pole, the structure will collapse. A collapse of a structure on the people it is protecting can kill them. If the leadership of the father is weak in the house will collapse, right? Then we just got a picture of a house that literally is doing just that. It's collapsing because the load bearing structures have given out, right? And it don't matter how strong the rest of the top of the house is. If the father is not strong in the house, it's going you're gonna run into some issues, right? Might not be instant, might not be immediately, but it's gonna happen, right? So Mark 3:24 says, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Hashatan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but have an end. No man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. So, in other words, you remove the man out of the house, and now the whole house is in danger, right? First line of defense, right? So it's imperative that on an individual level, the quote unquote head of the house has to submit himself to the ways of Mashiach. Otherwise, that's gonna be we're gonna run into this problem, right? Where the house ain't gonna be able to stand. Because the wind and waves gonna come regardless. That's just like Ox said earlier, the environment. It's gonna happen. So the question is, what happens when a man does not protect his home? What happens when a man is not strong in his home? His home will collapse, and it will be destroyed, right? So, message to all of us men, and notice I said us men. It's a lot weighing on the line, and we really cannot afford to drop the ball. Because if we drop the ball with self and making sure that we are in line with the Father, then we're gonna open up the whole house to being to attack, right? And then nobody wants that, because our whole primary function is to protect it. So we unfortunately have an example of this and how this works, right? The example is written for our learning. Joshua chapter 7, verse 10. And Yahuwah said to Joshua or Yahushua, get you up. Wherefore lie you thus upon your face? We were talking about this a couple weeks ago. Like, and this is the father talking to the leader of the community, right? Of the nation, and saying, no, well, I don't know why you looking at me. It's some households in the nation that's not right. So how come I move you as a nation? I can't move you as a nation because it's some folly in the nation. So you go deal with the nation. All these levels got to be checked. Check these boxes. Self got to be right. Households got to be right. Now I can move for you as a nation, right? We cry out so much against the quote unquote oppressor and against so many other things, but we not getting the prerequisites right first. Once we do that, then yeah, now we can move as a nation, and it's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. Something gonna have to, Father gonna move. He'll have to stand up. At that point, he wouldn't be who he is. Otherwise, he's already told us so many times before that this is how he moves. So It will behoove us to do what? Start on an individual level, get self right. Once we are able to manage that at some level of proficiency, right? You ain't gonna have it all figured out, but okay, we moving in this direction. We know what the goals are, and this the direction we moving in. And to the best of our ability, we ain't deviating off of that path. And if we do, we know the path to get back on, right? Then we move from that as an individual. Same thing translates as a household, as a body of individuals. Then now we got all of that right now. We can move as a nation and go to war against whatever other enemies that there are outside of our nation, right? All praises. So notice what he says, verse 11. He says, Israel has sinned, and they have also transgressed my covenant which I commanded them. For they have even taken of the accursed thing, and have also stolen and dissembled also, and they have put it even among their own stuff. Now, what was interesting is how the father put it right here is Israel as a whole. I'm addressing all of y'all. You either gonna deal with these issues and stand on my side or be in agreement with this. And as long as y'all are in agreement with this, I'm gonna deal with all of y'all as one. So this is the opportunity for me to actually y'all draw the line in the sand and say, no, we're gonna deal with this, right? He says, therefore, the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their backs before their enemies because they were accursed. Neither will I be with you anymore, except you destroy the curse from among you. So, in other words, go get your house right. You were expecting me to move, but nah, go get your house right, then come back. Once we do that, then we can level up, right? This is how the Father is moving. And this is again, we speaking on a broad level of everyone, but it trickles down level by level by level. And this is I put it like this for of my own personal experience, right? And I can't say that everybody has experienced this, but my I have an inkling that y'all gonna know what I'm talking about, right? If I notice that I'm starting to have too many issues within the household, maybe it's an indicator for me to go and look in the mirror and get individual right. Because maybe that's the Father's way of letting me know, oh, nah, before you come to me talking about Ishai, Yellow Deem is doing this, go look at yourself, right? Again, I don't have a scripture or verse. I can only tell you that from my own personal experience, this is how he's dealt with me. And I have an inkling that others know, maybe not everybody, but somebody else out there know what I'm talking about. Like, it's an indicator to be like, before you point that finger, go look at yourself. Once you do that, see how much easier it's going to be. And you just going to know the stuff just start cleaning up. That's just how it seemed to work. So, yeah, that's just, yeah, I'll leave that there.
I say his face is in everything around us. He said, they refused to know me through deceit. Not that they couldn't know me. They just look at it for what it really is. But they won't let go of the deceit. It's an accursed thing brought in the midst that brought demise. And the person made himself one with that thing. In their heart, they couldn't separate from it. So they had to be destroyed.
All praises. All praises. He says, verse 13, up, sanctify the people, and say, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow. So, word to the wise. This is the Father's mercy, right? I could have let y'all go in that battle and let them wipe all of y'all out at one time. But instead, I'm giving you an opportunity. Go set yourself apart, get this right. Then we're going to revisit this, right? So, literally, all is not lost with the Father. This is, like we said in the last lesson, it's glory to glory, glory to glory. But literally, along the way, reproofs, corrections come along, and it's like, hey, this is the fork in the road. If you're trying to level up higher, fix this. Okay, this gets fixed. And then, I mean, he gonna keep on glory to glory until the perfect day, right? After you deal with today's worries, tomorrow got worries of its own. Then you gonna look in tomorrow and all right, well, All right, thanks for showing me that, Father. Until eventually you can get to the point where he's like, all right, now just maintain, right? Hold on to what you got, right? And that's the goal. So he says, up, sanctify the people, and say, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow, for thus says Yahuwah Elohai of Israel. There is an accursed thing in the midst of you, O Israel. You cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the accursed thing from among you. Huh. Really, really interesting. Because not standing before our enemies also meant what? What is he saying? You can't stand before me. Right? Like,
Deuteronomy 28. That's why it's all one.
all praises.
Switch up, but it's all a reflection of your relationship with him. It's direct correlation.
Hmm.
Now, what were you just saying about the household? Looking in the mirror.
Hmm. SATC.
Those unseen things, the scriptures tell you, are the enemy. Like we've been taught to separate it, spiritual from physical. Said, our Elohim is one. Mashiach came down, express image of him in the physical. They say he is one. They say he was two separate beings. So then what needs to be addressed when we're not able to stand before our enemies? Stuff manifests in the physical. Now that we're learning to appropriate it, it's like, oh, wait, okay. All right, game on.
Something ain't right. And I just figured out what it is. All praises.
When and the way it's going to come, it's my job not to be corrupted who I truly am. Who am I truly? Am I in tune with that? If I got in tune with the Father to find that out. So now when the pressure comes, it's like, oh, man, just don't move. Oh, okay. Instead of getting dragged around like a rag doll because I don't know what to do. Yeah, all praises.
All praises. All praises. So he says, in the morning, therefore, you shall be brought according to your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which Yahuwah takes shall come according to the families thereof, and the family which Yahuwah shall take shall come by households, and the household which Yahuwah shall take shall come by man by man. Huh. All these levels connecting together, leveling up, and he gonna keep on dealing with it until he gets down to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is on the individual level, ironically. Huh. Interesting. So it says, verse 15, and it shall be that he that is taken with the accursed thing shall be burnt with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of Yahuwah, and because he has wrought folly in Israel. So Yahusha rose up early in the morning and brought Israel by their tribes, and the tribe of Yehuda was taken. And he brought the family of Yehuda, and he took the family of Zarkim, and he brought the family of the Zarkim man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought his household man by man, and Akan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, what the son of Zarak of the tribe of Yehuda was taken. And Yahusha or Joshua said to Akan, my son, give, I pray you, glory to Yahuwah Elohai of Israel, and make confession unto him, and tell me now what you have done, hide it not from me. And Akan answered Yahusha and said, indeed, I have sinned against Yahuwah Elohai of Israel, and thus have I done. When I saw among the spoils a goodly garment of Shinar, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels of weight, then I coveted them, and I took them, and behold, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. So Yahusha sent messengers, and they ran into the tent, and behold, it was hid in his tent, and the silver under it. And again, just like Aqua saying, what is this really expressing to us? Nah, this was a thing that was deeply rooted within him himself. This thing was buried and hidden within his heart. That's really what they showing. But then not just that, is hidden in his tent. And not only is it hidden in his tent, but we already done seen how these houses and how these tents and how this stuff looks. Members of this house seen it too. Nobody say nothing. So
Not only did you take it in the house, like you didn't take it in the house like, yo, the nation just came up. You took it in your house and buried it. I just came up.
Mhm.
Not only that, like it's one thing to see something valuable, but like, man, I could use that. But you
Mhm.
didn't go through the proper change of communication to find out if you can have that. You
Mhm.
just straight up took it for yourself.
Mhm. And then remember beforehand, the father told him, put it all under the band.
That's the part right there.
Hmm.
Straight up disobedience.
So you knew. If I ask, he gonna say no.
Uh-huh. Come on.
Like you already knew. So yeah, it's deep.
I'm my own a little at this point.
Mhm.
I can get by on this.
Mhm.
Take a few lumps.
Mhm.
So you think.
Hmm. When we get in the land, I'm gonna be rich.
Mm-hmm. So you're gonna be ahead of your people. Have somebody looking, trying to figure out how you
Mm.
got there, and you did wrong to get there.
Mm,
And you think the father gonna have it in his house?
that part.
You're
Yeah, it's
undermining
cold.
the father's ways.
Mhm.
It's like me trying to come up by hitting the lotto or selling poison, but then stand before the people like I represent the king,
Mm-hmm.
or even
Blessings
just
on
try to stand in the
blessings.
midst of the people.
These
Yeah.
them blessings.
Uh huh.
Okay.
Nah.
Mm. Mm. All praises. Mm. Yeah, it's deep. The Father already knows. He already knew ahead of time. He saw the whole play take place. Already knew ahead of time. The whole house is gonna have to go. The house that you find it got it.
If I may,
All praises.
all praises. Uh, Psalm 127 and verse 1. Or
All praises.
all praises. Yeah, Psalm 127 and 1. Except the Adonai build the house, they labor in vain to build it. Except the Adonai keep the city, the watchman wake but it in vain.
Mhm.
It's a vain thing to rise up early and to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Like, we're only going to get so far in our own strength.
That part right there.
Proverbs 14 and 1.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 14 and 1. Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with their hands. He that walketh in his uprightness fears the Adonai, but he that is perverse in his ways despises him.
Mm-hmm.
So you showed that Yahuwah's ways weren't nothing compared to what you thought you could do in your own strength.
Mm-hmm.
All I gotta do is bury this, wait till ain't nobody paying attention, and cash in.
Mm-hmm.
And on and on and on. It's just like on this side of it, realizing that he's trying to raise us up so that we can once again be accepted in his presence, in the fullness of his presence.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the foundation? If it's not physical, but it's all spiritual, and then represented in the physical, what are these foundations? When are they being altered?
Mm-hmm.
And he's showing us to recognize those boundary lines so that we can stay within his bounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we stepping away from mercy, we're no longer operating on his foundations. That's a requirement.
That part.
When I show mercy to you, I'm really showing mercy to myself
That part.
because I'm going to get that back. When I stop showing mercy to you, I'm really cutting myself off from mercy. I'm just not thinking about it right now. I ain't thinking clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when are those foundations being moved? when
Mm-hmm.
we stepping off of the rock and onto the sand and trying to build something,
Mm-hmm.
honing in on that so that these houses can stand because it ain't gonna be in our own strength.
Mm-hmm. All praises. All praises. Verse 23 says, and they took them out of the midst of the tent and brought them unto Yahusha and unto all the children of Israel and laid them before Yahuwah. And Yahusha and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerach and the silver and the garment and the wedge of gold and his sons and his daughters and his oxen and his donkeys and his sheep and his tent and all that he had, and they brought them unto the valley of Achor. And Yahusha said, why have you troubled us? Yahuwah shall trouble you this day. And all Israel stoned him with stones and burned them with fire. And after they had stoned them with stones, and they raised over him a great heap of stones unto this day. So Yahuwah turned from the fierceness of his anger, wherefore the name of that place was called Emek Achor unto this day. My oh my.
Yeah, that's wild.
My oh my. The whole house fell because of, for lack of the weakness of the head of that house.
Yeah, the way they were taught to move was gonna be a cancer, so it was
Mm-hmm.
cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deep. Like as the head, we fighting daily, whether we wake up with a clear head to realize that or not. But we fighting not to let our
Mm-hmm.
judgment slip, because as soon as our judgment slips, then usually our tongue slips. And by the time our tongue slips, now we
That
poisoning
part.
the household because now they being taught to misjudge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only a while before the warnings get ignored, and you're like, okay, so you just gonna do what you want. Y'all gonna do what you want, and you
Mm-hmm.
thought that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna let that creep into the kingdom. You ain't gonna be caught off guard and then be found a
Mm-hmm.
liar because the kingdom is imperfect.
Mm-hmm. That part.
Purge the evil from the midst. And I'm just thinking about like when you do get into the congregation part, like it's important for responsibilities like leaders or watchmen or whatever the function is, to just ensure that everyone is on board and doing the right thing. Otherwise, somebody can slip through the cracks, and you get this situation. And now Abihu is not with anybody because there's sin within the camp. You know what I mean? And so it's just interesting how that one sin can just cause Abihu to not be in the midst, you know? And so it's just vital just to make sure that, just the unity, the lesson in general, like when when the congregation or whatever has occurred, that everyone's on one accord, everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. And if not, whatever questions got to be, just make sure we're all in one agreement so that there is no unnecessary, anything unnecessarily going through the cracks and not no one knowing about it. You know what I mean?
All praises. All
Yeah.
praises. Definitely. It's quite a task. Like there's again, it's levels to it. Like you will see that each different moving part of the house, of the community, of the nation, each different part has a function and a role that is necessary in order for the whole of the the body to be able to move and function. And so to the point that you just made, it's going to be real difficult for the body to see if the eyes is poked out. If you blind and you, it's going to be real hard to hear when danger is coming if the ears ain't functioning right. So it really is starting from the top down. Like everybody has their own role and their own weight to carry, all the way down to the yellow dean. Like all of this is being hinged upon their future, and all of the work that we doing will be in vain if they not fit to be able to carry it on. So we got to make sure that they have what they need to be able to do so. And they have to have it within them on an individual level to be able to do so.
That's right.
So it's like it's literally every single piece and every single part of this has to come together the right way in order for us to get anywhere. Otherwise, there'll be some problems.
And like, right there, like the ground has to be told, the seeds got to be viable, nurtured, watered, matured. And at any point in time, if either one of us as parents slip up in our judgment and then in our tongue, and that poison getting that child, because whatever reason, Yahuwah doesn't seem pleased with forcing it out of that child. Literally, we don't cut ourselves off.
Mhm.
It's deep.
Mhm. Mhm. All praises.
I just really liked how a thorough investigation was done, with Joshua, how he, like Abi, who was said, let me see, was it, by tribe, by clan, by household, to be able to understand what occurred. And then it's interesting because not only him, but his whole family was stoned and then burned with fire. So then going on with the responsibility of the Ish, or just the household, like, man, like it's not only you, but your whole family, can deal with the same judgment because of what you did. And I think sometimes people say, oh, well, the reason why is because no one said anything about it. Everyone knew, but maybe could have said something about it, but nobody did. The reason why, that occurred the way it did, only Abu who truly knows. But what I'm saying is that it's just interesting how strongly the responsibility of each to a household, how important it is. um, yeah, and then that goes into a whole nother thing about the Isha and whoever else that saw all of it and didn't say anything because we don't know all of it. But I'm just saying, I'm just thinking like, like like would an Isha just sit there and sit and watch that occur, or would she, speak up and properly take care of the situation? Maybe go to the Isha. The Isha's that listen and go to whatever the case may be. It's just something that I'm just thinking about that order, how that would properly occur. Yeah, like hey, look, I
Depends on
done
the
seen with my
mindset.
eyes.
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
and trust me, that ain't no easy. Which, as these lessons go on, we'll see. Like that. This is the reason why Shaul says, like, oh, I desire that none be married and be like me, because, like, not that it's anything wrong with marriage, but he did point out the fact that, like, yeah, but when you are married, you do realize that that hat comes with responsibilities.
Like I
And
said, you're gonna have trouble in the flesh.
like that's
Opening yourself up.
yeah, that's the way that it's gonna go. So yeah, like you're gonna be one, yeah, and vice versa. Like this is the same thing that we saw with Adam and Kawa, like in the garden. Like they put things out of order. I just put it like that. But to that point that you made, it's my belief that the Father is definitely just. Like we know that uh if you go back and you look at when Korah's rebellion, right? So during Korah's rebellion, like yeah, during that time, whole households receive judgment, but then you find out later on, like somehow his house is still alive. And how is this house still around if they all got destroyed? How is it that was it Samuel? I want to say if you look at the line of Samuel, you'll find that Samuel's line traces back to Korah. It might not be Samuel, it's somebody, don't hold me on it. But there is somebody that is in the scriptures, if I'm not mistaken, it's Samuel, that if you go back and you look at his line traces back to Korah. And it's like, well, no, so there had to have been that somebody of Korah's house didn't perish. So even though it's like, no, this is a judgment on the house, if somebody stands up and it's like, we went with that, like, we wouldn't. The Father is gonna be just in that thing. Like, so yeah. In this case, I think that there was definitely, if not a level of outright agreement, it was a level of, well, loyalty to Pops. It was a level of whatever it was, whatever the details and the nuance of it was, people didn't choose the side of righteousness, and the line wasn't drawn in the sand to where it would only fall on him, right? Because we even see the example with Nabal and Abigail. When the father he knows how to just remove. If the man is the only problem, get you out the way. He know how to deal with that too. So like we've seen him do it both ways. Yeah, if she wouldn't have done it the right way, then who knows how that would have ended out. If she would have been just as wicked, like he always, yeah. But there is a such thing as, like Ak was just saying, nah, this done spread throughout the house, and it don't matter what get done. Them principles is already at play. Like this is why the firstborn of all of Egypt, it's like, nah, and this was a just judgment. These ways is throughout this whole nation. Like this is the way that this nation moves. They don't know any other way. And if you present another way, they're gonna do just like Pharaoh is doing. They're not gonna accept it. So with that being said, here comes my judgment. Like the father knows he knows all of it.
Like, I don't think he randomly picked a number when he says, surely your people should be in a land that's not their own for 400 years.
Mm.
How long did it take to really wash that laundry?
Mm. Mm.
Now, on this side of it, if it still ain't washed out, what's going to happen?
Mm.
He going to put it to death. Ain't no more captivities coming.
But that part, yeah. But we at the end of the sevens. Like at this point, like really the individual, I'm gonna put it this way, and this is I'm gonna say personal belief, right? Let me preface it. The individual level of I'm a judge Israel because they're not getting it right. Look at the state of the world, folks.
Come on.
Deal with Israel for what? Only deal with Israel for what? Now, my judgment, I got to tear this whole everything up. It's the days of Noah. It's the days of Lot.
Mm-hmm.
So get in line. You either about to get down or you gonna lay down. But let this place keep going longer and longer and longer and longer and longer for what? You know, like for it to just keep on multiplying the wickedness upon the wickedness.
Just like what he said with mankind when he shortened man's days.
Mm-hmm.
He said, why do you need a long life? Why you still need to be around 969 years? You ain't Methuselah.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't
Right. Like you're not
like, it didn't benefit them to live that long.
you're not doing any better to have that that
Mhm.
long life. Like you're no. So I'm gonna shorten your days to 120. And just like we were talking about with 7 times 7, like this to end. What is that in the scriptures? Let those who are wicked be wicked still. Let those who are righteous be righteous still. Like at this point, he have let mankind play out long enough to what it is what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
If it was in your mind to be righteous or to be upright, it's gonna be in your line and it's gonna pass down and it's gonna, like we talk about, have the conversation all the time about like placeholders in our lineage. And we were just talking about this, like what you were just saying about your feelings for what they knew. Now they upheld their leg of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's on us
Mm-hmm.
to do our leg of the journey,
Mm-hmm.
to uphold what he's revealing to us, and so on and so forth. Well, and what it's going to be is what it's going to be. Not that, nobody can or da-da-da, but no, if it's in you, it's going to be the case. Like that washing, the fuller soap. At this point in time in the lineage, it's going to wash out and it's going to come out in the rinse. This is the rinse. What it's going to be is what it's going to be.
That's part of, I personally believe that's part of the rhyme and reason behind the wind and the waves.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring to the surface what your foundation is.
That part.
While you got a little time.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you see. Deuteronomy 8.
Mm-hmm.
He was reminding the people.
Mm-hmm.
That time was so that you could see what your foundation is. I'm trying to get you to this promised land.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to allow you to see and choose a new foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to stand on it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I bet I can wait you out.
That part right there.
You try to wait me out.
That part right there.
It's deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All praises. All praises. So Exodus 20, verse 5 and 6, he says, "You shall not bow down yourself to them, speaking of the idols, nor serve them, for I am Yahuwah your Elohim, but am a jealous El, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and guard my commandments. Right? Numbers 14:18 says, Yahuwah is long suffering and of great mercy, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. Right? So, and this is not to say that Yahuwah is a punisher of the just with the unjust, so that we don't get this, confused, right? If you as an individual are righteous before him, you'll be fine, right? When judgment comes for you, your personal judgment, you'll be all right. If you was righteous, you was gonna be righteous and be judged as the righteous, right? But and as a matter of fact, we see where judgment postponed a generation or two because that generation decided to follow Yahuwah and repent. Josiah is an example of that, right? We see this many times with kings and so on. But what this does show us is that the influence that the father, the leader of the family, has on everyone else. What happens is the father sets the standard. If everyone perceives that something is good or bad to the father, there is a much higher chance that the followers will follow that same pattern. This is how influence works. So people with authority generally have a much stronger influence. This can be both good and bad depending on the situation. So in the cases above, the influence of the father proves to be detrimental to the family's survival. However, this same influence can be used not to destroy the family, but to save it.
Mhm. Yeah,
All praises.
yeah. Like, as a father that has made mistakes, I personally realized like once you choose Yahuwah ways, he gonna root you on.
Hmm.
Now, if somebody else in the house don't want to choose his ways, well, that perfect storm will show up and give them the ultimate opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But he gonna hold you to your guns, and he gonna keep to his, and you can still eat the fruit, the
Mm-hmm.
toad fruit of
Mm-hmm.
choosing him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all in his mercy, because he could
Mm-hmm.
utterly destroy. Yet
That
he
part.
chooses to refrain.
Mm-hmm. All praises.
I was gonna say, yeah, all praises to Yahuwah that he has allowed a lot of us to be taken out of maybe foundational teachings that weren't right. You know what I mean? Of course, you have parents who do the best they can. Some parents just flat out don't care. But what I'm saying is that, of course, now as adults, we're able to just denounce a lot of the things that maybe we were taught that weren't right. And like I was saying, just being able to say, no, thank you, Abihur, for another chance of not destroying us, based on what we have been taught, what we have been doing, practices based on what we know, what we have seen. And so, yeah, just going back to those deeply roots, you know what I mean? So just time to go on, do what you can, dig them up, and just I'm thankful for the ability to be able to know what to do, what not to do according to the word, and just be able to get out of that, foundational curse or whatever the case may be, whatever occurred, whatever I was taught that wasn't correct. And the Father did not destroy me, and many of us can say the same thing. So, yeah, all praises to you.
All praises. So Genesis 6:8, right? But Noah found favor or grace in the eyes of Yahuwah. Jumping down to verse 18. So Noah found it. He was upright, right? And he's the opposite of a con, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 18. But with you I will establish my covenant, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your woman and your sons' women with you, right? So literally, this thing can work both ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hebrews 11:7. By belief or faith, Noah, being warned of Elohim of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, right? So he was able to open up the door to salvation to his whole house.
Mm-hmm. Come
Mhm.
on.
By the which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith or belief, right? Acts 16:25. And at midnight, Shaul and Sila prayed, and sang praises unto Yahuwah. And the prisoners heard them, and suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all of the doors were open, and everyone's bands were loose. And the keeper of the prison awaked out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. But Shaul cried with a loud voice, saying, "Do yourself no harm, for we are all here." Now, this right here, that's a test right there. It's obvious that the Father's hand is on these doors opening up. And they all said, "We still here. We didn't go nowhere. We free and we could have escaped. But we stayed. We still here." Hmm. Whole nother thing. But that's just interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Hmm. So it says, then he called for a light and sprang in and came trembling and fell down before Shaul and Sila, whatever name is supposed to be, or like what we're familiar with seeing there. I can't call it right now. Silas, sure. That sound right. Like Ciyla. I'm like, I'm struggling. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's that. Yeah, no, but that rings the bell for me. Silas, yeah. That rings the bell for me. All praises.
Yeah, it's Silas here in KJV.
All praises. And brought them out and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" So now notice, what did this act of righteousness do? Right? Like, yeah, it's deep. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's deep though. Really is. Mm-hmm. Being a light to the nations.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we do it, huh?
Truly, this one that y'all know is mercy.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to be in?
That part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they said, "Believe on the Adonai Yahusha Hamashiach, and you shall be saved, and your house." And they spoke unto him the word of Yahuwah and to all that were in his house. And he took them the same hour of the night and washed their stripes, and was immersed, he and all his, straightway. And when he had brought them into his house, he set meat before them and rejoiced, believing in Yahuwah with all his house. So again, he was a strong leader in his house, and because he was able to get it for himself, he was able to make the way plain for everybody else. Now his whole house got saved. Acts 18. After these things, Shaul departed from Athens and came to Corinth and found a certain Yahudi named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy with his woman Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Yahudim to depart from Rome, and came unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Shabbat and persuaded the Yahudim and the Greek. And when Silas and Timothy were come from Macedonia, Shaul was pressed in the Ruach and testified to the Yahudim that Yahusha was Mashiach. And when they opposed themselves and blasphemed, he shook his raiment and said to them, "Your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From henceforth I will go unto the other nations." And he departed from thence and entered into a certain man's house named Titus, one that worshipped Yahuwah, and whose house had joined hard to the synagogue. And Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed on Yahuwah with all his house. And many of the Corinthians or Corinthian, hearing, believed in Yahuwah and were immersed. So it is the job of the Father to make sure that he is the head of his house under Yahusha, and that and the father Ab Yahuwah. If he does this, he greatly increases the chance of his family being saved. It starts with the father in the house. He is the leader. If he is a poor leader and leads his house in the wrong direction, everyone suffers. If he is a strong leader and leads his house in the right direction, everyone benefits. It is the job of the father to build a heritage for inheritance. Proverbs 13:22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous.
Come on.
Right. So just something to keep in mind, right? Like each individual has a contribution to the generation to come, right? And that's really what it's building towards. Because, like we saw in the beginning of the lesson, we saw what? Now it's 3 generations that's living in this one dwelling, right? Each level within this has its own, like we were saying, leg of the race to run. I'll leave it there.
Three-chord string is not easily broken.
All praises.
You got the energy and the strength of the youth,
Hmm.
the wisdom of the elders, and the current generation that's
Hmm.
moving and shaking.
Hmm.
With enough
Hmm.
sense to know that we need to pass this knowledge and wisdom all up and through this bad boy
There we go.
and keep it going.
Hmm.
That's what's been lacking.
Hmm.
That's what ain't been happening.
That
And you
part.
wonder why generation after generation we got these 12-year-olds and 46-year-olds and 62-year-old bodies. And then the next one's just spawning into this environment like a tadpole and cut loose on their own to figure it out. Figure what out? How to suffer? Because I don't know what I'm stumbling at.
That part.
I was literally thinking about that earlier, like literally, like verbatim. I was thinking about that earlier about how if we were in a functioning and, for lack of a better terminology, like perfect society, what could and would be happening. What was the old saying? If you listen to elders, the old saying is twice a child, once an adult.
Mhm.
And twice a child because after you do your raising of your children and get into those golden, years, those very aged, I'm talking about even past retirement years. I got a grandmother right now who's 94 years old, her age, and this is why I was thinking about this. Because I'm thinking like, man, I really have to do more to step up and take care of her because she's in those years.
And you're only gonna benefit from it.
Only gonna benefit from it, and
You're gonna
ideally,
serve and not benefit from it.
That part.
and
It's a whole bar.
the like ideally what would happen, those who are capable and are age is like the really her child, but her children, those who are still alive, and they step up and they take care of her, and that's what's supposed to happen. Your children are supposed to take care of you, and then at the same time, when you have your great grandchildren, because right now these sitting here, these are her great grandchildren. So all in that circle of functionality, you would have, just as he stated, the elders, the very aged, passing on wisdoms and stories and knowledge to the very youthful. But you have those who are in that walk in between the children and grandchildren, because we ain't spring chickens, but younger than the age above than the generation above us. But those who are those 2 generations who are moving and shaking and doing it, what we get the benefit of meshing that all together. The wisdom and the mobility, the youth.
That
We
part.
still have youth on our side. And in a well functioning society, that would be the way that it would go. But there's
Yes,
such
indeed.
a push to not to not do that. Because on one side of my family, it's like that would have been the case, because I can remember before my mother passed, that's what she was preparing to do. Literally, before she passed, she had a mother, they call mother in law suite, built onto our house down in Tennessee. so that grandmother could come and live and, be taken care of in her golden years, live out her days, helping, doing what she could, not saying all responsibility for the youth is going to be on the elder folks,
Mhm.
no, but imparting what you can.
Mhm.
Being because that also still makes the elders feel like they're still a viable part of the community because they are. We need that wisdom. We need that experience. We need all of
Right
that.
on mine.
Listen, listen, absolutely. Like it's nothing like if we could, like we were talking about earlier, get back to that mindset of getting ourselves together, understanding how that stuff is supposed to work.
China doing
The Most High set it up for us to win.
it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing about, okay, what are you passing down to the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
When it's something viable, well, that generation will do well. And that's part of that inheritance. The financial part is subsequent to the spiritual and mental wisdom.
Mhm.
But when it's an accursed thing that's passed down, then who can say something when the whole house is on fire?
That part.
Like, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. All praises. All praises. With that being said, it's Shalom. We right at the end for the day. So,
Y'all a little early.
just a
Again,
little bit, but it's
little early.
but all praises. Yeah, Hebrews 4:11. Let us therefore do our utmost to enter into that rest, lest any fall after the same example of disobedience. For the word of Elohim is living and walking and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of being and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all are naked, laid bare before the eyes of him with whom is our account. Right. So yeah, with that, that's the end. Just something for us to meditate on. Uh, yeah, today, like I said, dealing with the men as heads and kind of our role in the house. But don't worry, women and children, y'all coming too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, don't worry. No child left behind.
All praises.
So yeah, and maybe we'll see where the father leads and instructs. But yeah, like I said, definitely not intended to be exhaustive, but definitely is something to, as we continue to build, we'll see like by the time we get to the community level, it's so many checks, so many boxes that have to be checked.
Mhm.
So that then it's like, yeah, by the time we get to the community level, as long as then that part is the easiest part. But notice that today, that's usually like the most difficult part. And it's because boxes ain't getting checked. So
Mhm. Precisely.
yeah. Um, yeah. Hopefully through studying this, we can all sharpen one another, get sharper and sharper and go glory to glory into the perfect day. Yeah.
All
With that,
praises.
I'm Tobio.
Okay, so I was sitting over here doing a little bit of reading because there was something that you had mentioned like way, way, way back. And speaking to the excuse me, speaking to the order um, of everything, and I don't know if it kind of succors or supports what you were saying, but deducing what we can deduce from what we know about what the Father have already ordained as far as order is concerned. I was reading through the book of Hosea because Hosea speaks a lot about this, and it even brings up, and that's what made me go there because you had went to Joshua and talking about the Valley of Achor, and Hosea it talks about the Valley of Achor being a door of hope, and that's what drew me to that book, and that being to me like a symbol of like, okay, no, the hope is when you remove the cursed thing from amongst you, regardless of the actual place, wherever it is. No, it's talking about when you do what they did in the Valley of Accord. Not only did you stone it, so you killed off what was harboring the accursed thing, but then you burned it. Fire purifies. You got all of that mess up out of you. Those same actions and activities, symbolically or however, spiritually, being that hope that we need. Also, in the book of Hosea, it goes into how, and leading kind of like what you were talking about, women and children were coming next. Not so we know that the Father is. We know automatically that the Father is definitely and does deal with us as women. And he punished us. We got a whole book, Isaiah 3. I'm sure you're gonna touch on it, but also kind of like I said, I don't know if it supports or succors, which we're talking about this day. How also in Hosea he's talking to the men and the priests and the men of the nation, and he's saying, listen, when your spouses, your wives and your daughters go a whoring, I'm not going to punish them because you yourselves have done it. You did it first. And it just, like I said, that book, just I went through and I was trying to read through it, and I'm like, I wonder if this is why the Most High put that in my mind, because it brings that order of, um, cleaning up, of repentance, of all of that, like you were talking about in the home. Like, okay, if my house is out of whack, probably mean I need to get in line with the Father. And then when I get in line with the Father, when I get in line with the Father, then everything else will fall into place. And then it just reminded me also of this conversation I was having on social media with someone. And there was a comment made. Under my comment was like, well, as a man, when, I can get it together, but the woman got to get it together first. And immediately, I can just immediately remember like thinking, that don't sit well in my spirit, because the woman wasn't created first. And it doesn't negate the fact that we as women have to get ourselves together, because in all honesty, I can personally, just like speak from personal experience, when you do get yourself together, everything falls into line. Personal experience. When the Father's working on him with something, if I'm paying attention and if I'm, really attentive to what's going on and what's breaking loose in my house and happening, I can see that the Father is teaching us the same lesson, just in our different capacities. He's teaching me a lot of times through these children about what come on now. He's teaching me through these children how to deal and how to function and operate. And just like he's teaching him through interactions out there how to function and how to operate, but it's in our different capacities. But at the same time, it is at the same time. Ain't no necessarily first or second. Like, it's no, you both have the responsibility to do this thing. However, where the head goes, the body follows. If the head is sick, the whole body is sick. So,
Because of the order, it wasn't given to the woman to learn the lesson first. As the man, it's your responsibility to take that thing head on, even if you're struggling with getting it. She might pick up on it quicker than you, but it's no cop out for a man to say that the woman's got to get it together in order for a man to get it together.
And that's what was showing me, because it's literally
as that, like, the Father, anybody can be replaced. I'll just say that. So there ain't no excuse to say, "Oh yeah, no, this point, no." Everybody's got to choose to get it together for themselves. We can be better, exactly, together.
You must not know about me. Let me stop. That's definitely pollution. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Like, I'm just saying, like, all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Because the door comes open don't mean the whole house got to fall.
Hmm.
It ain't supposed to work like that.
That part.
It's supposed to be a covering. Nah, come back under the umbrella.
Mhm.
Come back under the umbrella.
Mhm.
We throw the umbrella to the side. We all gonna dance in the rain. Everybody gonna be in trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's-
definitely is. I can speak from a man's perspective. If the man is waiting for the woman to get it together before the man can be a man,
Mm,
then the question is really how much of a man are you?
mm.
And that's the part that we often don't want to look at in the mirror, but it's like now the reality of it is the father is always going to start from the top down. And now it's one thing, like, here's the thing, and not to get too off base with it, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if Mashiach didn't come and do what he was supposed to do, if we not right, we gonna die we gonna perish in our sin and our iniquity. But the father would have had to have a bone to pick with Mashiach, right? They say, hey, and which is why Mashiach carried it the way that he did. No, I never knew you. I can't put my name behind that. Like, father gonna have a problem with me. So I'm not standing by none of y'all's foolishness. I'm gonna do everything what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to do it. So that way, when a father does start coming with judgment, he not gonna pour it out on me. He gonna have to deal where it got to be dealt with, right? The father has a way of doing that. He's always gonna be just. So like, it will never give us what if. That's the lesson that we learned with Moses, right? Like, what if? Yeah, the people was wicked as all get out. They backbiting, they murmuring, and all that. But you still know what you're supposed to do. That I didn't tell you to do that.
Yeah.
That just is what it is.
Yeah. You know, as representatives of him, there's a certain way we're supposed to move so that he gets his glory.
Mhm.
Now, if the leadership shows that, oh, we can deviate when it's convenient, who really gonna get it together?
That part. That
Like,
part.
what do you say his grievance was?
Hmm.
He didn't sanctify me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so my ways are optional now. I'm common, let it not be so. Now we coming back up from the pit of hell, trying to not just get above ground, but to ascend toward his throne while it's still in the heavens. We are on a major learning curve
That
of
part.
what's acceptable,
Hmm.
so that we no longer conform to the world.
Hmm.
Like Mashiach said, I give you not as the world gives. They do stuff different. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. All praises. Yeah. Hopefully, all praises. All praises. All praises.
Yeah, all praise.
All praise to the Most High. At this point, I don't think anybody else has anything else to say about it. I definitely look forward to the next. Was it part 4?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, technically, I mean, I guess because remember we had the one that was A
Part
and
2.
B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
So
gonna be
yeah.
part 5.
But we'll call it part 4.
All praises, but yeah, definitely look forward to the next one. All praise to the Most High. Toe blessing as usual. When these things come out, it's definitely a lot of stuff for us to consider and for us to ruminate over, and to just chew on, chew in the cud. You know, I don't think I have any announcements at this point. Or no, that's it. So may the Most High keep us. May the Most High hear us in our times of distress. Uh, May He make us exponentially more than we are as it is this day. And may that be for our toe and not for our destruction. Uh, Peace and Baruching to all the Most High people out there. To that, I guess, I'll say Shabbat Shalom, y'all. Now y'all can say it. Yeah, there we go.
All praises.